It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Andrew, the one who owns College Football Tours, a sports blog. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm really glad to be a part of your show today. Thank you for having me.
That's wonderful. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to start a college football tour blog?
Honestly, it all began as a little boy. Growing up as a Wisconsin fan, um, I grew up at the time in the early '90s when the Badgers were just really turning their program around, and Barry Alvarez was king, and still kind of is in the Wisconsin area. But grew up as they were turning that program around and went to that 1994 Rose Bowl, and it was such an incredible experience for me that, and having only had gone to games at Camp Randall Stadium in Madison, it was really exciting to experience a different venue and different traditions. Even though it was the Rose Bowl, I mean, it's the grandest stage you could have. But that's what got the idea kind of sparking at a very young age, and that I really wanted to see stadiums beyond what I was so familiar with.
How did you know that you wanted to travel all around the world to see different college football stadiums?
I think it was just my understanding that college football is incredibly unique in the sense that uh, it's a sport that isn't just played on the lines that you see on the field. It is something that is encompasses the entire day. It's an event. It's Americana. It's tradition, pageantry, culture. Everywhere you go with college football, game day is done a little bit differently, and I think that's what's so cool to have to. I think that's really what inspired me to explore. I wanted to see how game day was done differently everywhere I went, and I felt there was really good story to be told in that.
What is your favorite stadium that you've visited so far?
I will set Wisconsin aside just for now. I'll put Camp Randall aside over there because a lot of people say if I put that anywhere in my top five, I'm biased. It is in my top five, but Texas A&M is what I'm going to throw out there because when we went a couple of years ago, we actually went for the classic 74-72 seven overtime game that occurred down in College Station a couple of years ago. But I knew that going to College Station, going to Texas A&M was going to be special because the traditions they have there, and like most schools, have gone on for decades and decades and decades. But um, the way it is, the way that it is presented in that stadium, the way that everybody is so involved, the way that the traditions and the cheers and the intensity of the sound, and Texas A&M is a very special place and has incredibly unique traditions that really make college football a special sport.
Besides Wisconsin, what was your first stadium that you've ever visited for the college football tours?
Well, non-intentionally, my first stadium outside of Camp Randall would have been would have been would have been a now defunct, destroyed Hubert H. Humphrey Dome in Minneapolis in 1993. And after that, I'd have to say even more special to my heart would be Ryan Field in Evanston and Northwestern. Looking in hindsight, those were the first stadiums. So I had the goal to start doing this in 2004, and it was then that I had the intention to go somewhere with the hope to start tally marking these stadiums, and that would have been University of Colorado. That was my first stadium I went to with the intention of adding to my goal.
What are some of your dream stadiums to go to?
Fortunately, I've been to 84 now out of 130, and so I've hit a lot of good ones. So the ones though that hang out there that I really want to see, Georgia is out there, Auburn, and maybe a little bit of an outlier, but I think Army is one that I hear so much about, going in an October Saturday afternoon and seeing that tradition and seeing that game day, which is going to be far different than many others that I've been to. I've been to Navy and Air Force, but I've heard so many good things about Army. Army's way up there for me.
What are some of your future stadiums that you plan on going to this upcoming year?
Of course, this pandemic slapped me in the face pretty hard. I had Clemson and Washington on my schedule. I had Texas Tech in there, all places I'm very anxious to go to. So as I look ahead, I'm going to try to keep as much of those stadiums that I had in my 2020 list and try to produce them in 2021. Of course, the schedules aren't incredibly firm yet, so I'm waiting until we get some more solidification in those schedules, and then I'd be happy to start making that schedule. But you know, the Washington, Clemson, I know I had Florida State on there. I'm going to try to be as close to adhering to my 2020 schedule as I can. Those were some stadiums that were on that.
Have you ever visited Carolina, the Tar Heels, and Chapel Hill and NC State, along with ECU around here?
I did North Carolina and North Carolina State on the same day. Back in 2012, I went to Virginia Tech at North Carolina at noon and saw the Tar Heels win that day, even though they were on probation at that time. But I got a lovely tour of the campus, went up the clock tower. It was just wonderful. That evening, then we saw North Carolina State upset Florida State on a late fourth down conversion. So we had a really good day in North Carolina doing that. I've not been to East Carolina yet. There's a few stadiums I got to hit in that area. Looking forward to getting out there too.
What are some of your favorite game day experiences when you go on these different colleges?
The band, I always have a saying, wherever the band is pregame, that's where the action is, because so you know, there's the team walks, there's the pregame band concerts, and everyone does it a little bit differently. But I like to kind of follow the band, because usually that's where a lot of the energy is, a lot of the color, and of course the band being one of the most unique components of the sport. So I like to hit that. I have specific traditions in mind that are always fantastic. I love hearing what stadiums, you know, what kind of dance and cheers that have been so ingrained into a stadium that they're hard to break loose. Things that are so Texas A&M is full of them, and it's full of wonderful old school kind of sayings that you just never will hear. I think that's really, really cool traditions to have your ear out for.
Can you talk about some of your favorite moments when going to them, and what you look for whenever you go to different stadiums?
Favorite moments in history, like as far as favorite moments of games that I've been to. I mean, I'm always going to be, my heart's always going to be that 1994 Rose Bowl, January 1. Wisconsin winning that, because that's what lifted it all off. But some of those incredible moments, you know, I would have to say it's so hard to narrow it down, but there's so many games out there. That, again, that 74-72 Texas A&M over LSU is something that changed the course of the sport, because when they hit 7 overtimes that year, they realized, oh hell, we can't do this anymore. We can't have 5-hour long games, and they actually changed the overtime rule because of that game. So that's something that I feel that's a really cool moment in history to have been at. So moments like that, and anything historical like that. I was at Ron Dayne's in 1999 when he broke the rushing record. And that was an incredible experience, again at Wisconsin, but one of those things that launched my whole desire to do all this. As far as tradition moments, Iowa's wave is incredible. It's a newer tradition that just came in. They wave to all the kids at the Children's Hospital across the way. That was incredibly touching. Powerful moments like Colorado's Buffalo blasting out of the tunnel is something that is incredibly unique and sticks into my mind. You know, I think what's cool about what I do is it's really hard to narrow it down to one thing. I go searching for that that indelible moment that's going to stick there in my mind. And every place I go to has one, in its own unique way. And that's what I love going to find, is what tradition am I going to walk away with never forgetting? I kind of have a steel trap brain too, so those kind of images stick in there. But that's what I love about this, is it's hard to narrow it down to one or a
Can you
couple.
talk about the process of picking the schools that you go to each Saturday?
Absolutely. A lot of it has to do with time and money. I mean, doesn't everything? So as far as it goes, I wait on those television schedules to come out first, because much like that North Carolina State game I told you about, if I can get to 2 in a day or 2 in a weekend, I'm going to get the biggest buck for my plane ticket. And so I definitely handle that as best I can. I try to look at any Friday night and then Saturday kind of games. Actually, last year, I got really lucky. I got to Florida Atlantic on a Friday night. I actually worked that game on the field. Next morning, I was in I got Miami, got scheduled, and I worked that game on the field as well. That night, Florida International opened up a game. So I had 3 games in the Miami area within 24 hours. I logged, I think, about 28,000 steps each day on my on my foot tracker there. But it was those kinds of things are what drive my schedule. Can I get as many as I can in a weekend? Also, what's driving me? What are those places I really need to go to, like Army, like I'd mentioned. I'm very excited to go to Seattle and see Washington and get some tailgating done on the lake adjacent to the stadium. That would be really cool.
As the process of getting to these stadiums, do you have to buy your ticket like straight from like StubHub, or do you get like press passes?
A little combination of both. I usually do use StubHub to get my tickets, but I've been working with another group as well called Fanatics View, and they get me onto the field. I do some work for them as I'm doing some work for myself on the side. I've gotten on the field just for College Football Tour as well. So sometimes I can rely on whatever I'm doing media wise, and sometimes I just do it for myself. But StubHub is usually the way to go for me.
What advice would you give upcoming future people looking to travel all around the world to see different college football stadiums or even sports stadiums in general?
Don't rush in and rush out. I think the point of going to a stadium is experiencing the day. Get there a few hours before, stay there a few hours after, hit a bar, hit a restaurant, hit something, do something that helps you absorb the experience of the day. I know a lot of people who just waltz in at kickoff and leave even before the game ends and kind of check off their stadium. But make it a weekend if you can. Make it a special place, make it a special situation. I know I just also said that I try to get 2 in a day, but I also come in on a Friday night and leave on a Sunday so that I can enjoy the town, enjoy the area, even if I'm squeezing in a few stadiums at once. So, don't shortchange yourself on time. That would be my best advice.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find, of course, the College Football Tour on social media?
My website is collegefootballtour.com. Let's do that for starters. You can find me on Twitter. I use that primarily most. It's college_FB_tour. And everything else from YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, if you just search College Football Tour, all one word, you should find me.
Thank you again, Andrew, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the College Football Tour.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Enjoyed talking with you today.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Andrew, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thank you so much.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.